like it. They look so beautiful, right? My sister-in-law even made their dresses.
Really?
Even for a wedding, they look gorgeous, and the dresses are homemade, handmade.
Wow.
Yes. So like I said, the 5 brothers, we get together. Now, usually in November, is my mother's yahrzeit in New Jersey at the cemetery. We all go out together. So all my 5, to the cemetery where my mother is. But my father, where they killed him, is in Hungary. We went back twice. People go, but it's called Keverhab. So that we can do together, and you don't even do it every year. You can. It's back in Hungary. So we go November, the last day of Cheshvan. All my 5 brothers, all the 3 sisters, we make sure we all there together. And some my daughter, some children might come, but before Rosh Hashanah we also went. So, but we should have a picture together.
Of all of you guys.
The 5 brothers,
Yeah.
and the 3 sisters, where we do. But you saw my family picture, the grandchildren.
Right, yeah.
We do have some with all the brothers, but I have to put it together, Like when we had, in my family, when we had the wedding for my son, they already been married 11 years, and Nathaniel is 10, the first child, and then 2 little girls, 4 and 2, and she's expecting. Now they live in Florida. So that was the last wedding of my family. Everybody was there. We had beautiful pictures. I have to gather. Too bad, we don't have time because this is important, but maybe one day you could come back. Did I tell you about that memory book my school gave me?
Yeah.
Even I had to go over it more and more just to see all the gorgeous things they wrote. And the 8th grade has a project, I told you. The English teacher in middle school, Krieger Schachter. It's a nice school, that's what I taught for 23 years. So when they get to 8th grade, one of the assignments, the English teacher has them write about someone. And every year, they come to me, the teacher, and says, we're going to put it in your box. And they did. She says, you're the only teacher who gets all these letters. It's not even a letter, it's like 3-4 pages typed. I'll give you a copy of one, like one that I should have gathered, but I do have some extra copies maybe. Or I gather some and I'll get together with you once. What this girl wrote, she is, in 8th grade, she described everything we did in 3rd grade. Why she loved me, why she loved the class. It was amazing what she got out of it. And like I made a little play, and the way she described it, every play you made, this is what we learned from it. This is what, and she says, and then in 8th grade she said, you made me what I'm today. And now in the memory book, this girl is in high school, very smart. She's not even, she's continuing in a public school, not even a, some go to Baltimore-area High School, because we don't have a high school. So they go to Jewish high school, but some don't. This girl doesn't, but she's amazing. She wrote in the memory book, she said, and what I do now, what I am is what I learned from you in 3rd grade. Such as, one girl goes to Baltimore High School. She's graduating in June, Lily Berger. She wrote, every time I pray, I think of you. And she's already in Baltimore High School. You think she would do the prayers, but she says, when I pray Baltimore, she doesn't say what I'm learning in high school. She said, I remember the prayers you taught, and every time we pray, I do the way she described it, and I think of you, and it's the prayers you taught me. I'm still, I did teach a lot of prayers in 3rd grade, because everybody, even though you have subjects, but they say, what is your priority? And they say the kids who come out of my class, they were always prayers. They did more than the other classes, and even the teachers. So this girl is graduating high school, and this is that memory book is amazing. So one day, it's so heavy, we took it to New York, so my kids can see it, and then back. But you know the video that you saw, right? You can always see that.
Oh, thank you.
Right? Google. It's on
It's on
the internet.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
Didn't
Really?
Well, didn't we show you on the internet? We showed you on the
It would be,
television.
yeah, on
Yeah.
television.
Well, write it down. It's on the internet. Google. I thought you knew it.
No.
Google videos, and when it comes up, just type in Eva Raden.
Very cool.
EVARADEN. So when we showed you, because we also have the DVD,
Right.
but my son, with the permission of this nice person who did it, my son put it on the internet. So now, if you type that in, 1, 2, 3 comes up.
Wow.
Okay, so hey, if you want to use the Holocaust file as your presentation, you have permission. I mean, if you know what I mean, they made this video about me like over the 15 minutes. So if you want to incorporate it, you don't have to show everything, but you could,
Oh, thank you. Well, look at that.
if you want, you look at it again. Remember?
Of course.
It was so touching. But this lady who did it while I was talking, she got pictures, like I showed you, I found one in this book. She got pictures about the Holocaust, which is all over, you know, all the terrible things that happened. And she added it while I talk. But you probably know that the most horrible thing is that while the Germans were doing all these horrible things and killing Jewish people and making us suffer, they took pictures. They took constantly, sometimes they did the most terrible things, and while one did it, another SS guard was taking pictures. So a lot of the pictures were found from them. Yeah. Okay, so if you want to, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yes, so where did we stop? Like, you know, I told you that finally we were liberated.
But I just have a question to
Yeah.
go back to. When you were talking about the story, when you were, I think you were already in the Auschwitz camp, and you went, there bombing was occurring, and you went to a family took you in. Were you in the ghetto or were you in the
Okay,
camp?
so that part is like while we were staying in the camp,
Oh, so you weren't in the ghetto, you were already in the camp.
we were not in the concentration. We were in Austria.
Okay.
Yeah, because when we were in the ghetto, that was in Hungary, still near our home, you know, Hungary. And I have to say, like, maybe some people felt sorry in the village who were our friends who were not Jewish, but some people like were.
This was outside the camp. When you went to the village, that was outside the camp?
Yeah, so then we were in the concentration camp.
Okay.
And the parents, my mother went to work, and my older sister and 2 brothers were like, went to work because but one brother, 2 boys, 2 little boys, me and my sister, I think it was like 4 of us. We were just running around loose, you know, nobody watching you all day. But you stayed in the camp, but for some reason, I told you, whenever the bombs came, if it came at night, you have to be ready. They go to the bunker. But in the daytime, while we were running around loose, at this, one of the lagers, you know, it's hard to describe it. We were not always in the same place. The one Strasshof, the one I said, that's where we were most of the time. But sometimes for a few months they would ship us to another concentration camp, like maybe the parents had to pick vegetables or other things. So while we were in one camp where you could actually get in and out, but where would you run? You know, you didn't run anywhere, but you were able to leave. So one day the bombs came in the middle of the day, and we were sort of like playing maybe in the woods, and the bombs came and we didn't know where to go. And instead of going back to the concentration camp, we were running to the village. And suddenly the bombs were coming more, and we were already in the center of the village. And this, I never forget, we tried to get into, it seems like the bombs were already coming at that village square. And we were trying to run into one house, and they didn't let us. Like, we knew German, and we said, please. And somebody came out and said, no. And the next house, and they didn't let us in. And one family, like, opened their gate, in this Austrian houses, like you enter a gate and then the house. They actually opened the gate for us and helped us in and rushed us to the basement, because that's where the Austrian family was. And maybe even some neighbors, so there were quite a few people. We don't know if it was only one family, because sometimes when the bombs came, they would go to a house probably where the bunk, where the basement was the best. So they were all there, and they knew we were Jewish kids. They even, they asked questions. We told them. They were sorry. Maybe one or two even had tears in their eyes, because like we were little kids, and they said we were running, and where we told them about the concentration camp. We spoke to them, where is your mother? So they found out we are like, by the bad Nazis, but also you had a lot of, so then we stayed there all the time. When the bomb was over, I told you, they gave us food, and we somehow knew how, it reminds me of the story, Hansel and Gretel. But I think my sister, the older one, was already 12. So we walked back to the camp. And there, they couldn't believe it. But we told everybody how nice this family was. Because if they didn't let us in, we would probably die from the bombs. It was falling all over the village. So we stayed there a long time. Then they were so sorry. They gave us hot soup. We were just like, I mean, somebody asked me what is their name, but they were just, nice, not to know this, because they were nice people. So it was one of the concentration camps we stayed in, but it was always Austria, because only when they put us in the train, then they were going to take us to Auschwitz. That would have been already like on the border of Poland and Germany. But most of the time, people who survived, I think it's because we were in Austria. And those camps were just like getting you ready to take you to a worse place. Well, we were in a place called Strasshof, but one time we were in a place called Mosbeerbaum. And I think that's the big camp where we were, wasn't as horrible. You could leave, and so the kids were like, went to the garbage can looking for food. I used to be so proud of myself. They said I was so smart, because sometimes a truck came with vegetables. Because the Germans did have a kitchen, and there were, besides us, there were German Nazis, SS, some who were just there to watch over, to guard us and not to let us leave, because they were in charge. But it was a barrack, so they had vegetables and things, for their cooking. And once, when the trucks came, we were climbing under the truck. And if a potato or something fell, and they weren't watching, you could take it. And I remember they said I was so good at it. Potato fell, carrot, and we went back home. I think we just ate the raw vegetables the way it was. Besides, but every morning they gave you something to survive. But I remember my poor mother hardly touched the food, because they gave so little, a piece of bread, she gave it to the kids. And she was so skinny. And I had a brother who was only, I think, 3 years old in the camp. All day he was crying, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. So now, he's a grandfather, he has 3 kids and grandchildren. And very often, we all mention to him, are you hungry? And then I remember we were at a party, like in the beginning. You know, the war was over, then we came to America eventually. In the beginning, my mother would say, eat, eat, because she remembered that we were always starving. And one of my brothers says to my mother, Mom, we're not in the concentration camp and we don't have to eat. We have enough food here. She was like remembering when we starved. My poor mother, you know, survived and came to America. But she went through so much, so she had a heart attack here and died. But so finally everybody would have been happy because we were all here, you know. I will tell you that later if you have some questions about this. Okay, so that was in the Austrian camp already, and we were hungry.
So
when
which camp, when you were liberated, which camp were you?
Strasshof.
Oh, Strasshof, okay.
Yeah, because, well, I better tell you, first we arrived to Strasshof, and it was called a Durchgangslager. It was called a gathering lager, where you would just gather and they took, we don't know, they took some away right away to worse places. But somehow we were there, and for a while we went to another one and we got back here again. But some people just were taken, you know, right away. And so it's Strasshof where we, yeah. And this is where people had, you know, everybody had like a little bunk, kind of. And my whole family and this man. Later on, I don't know what happened to this nice man who shared the bunk with us.
Right.
So when we were liberated, it was Strasshof again, and it was Russian soldiers. We were, I'm not going to get into that, but we felt so, later like we felt bad because, you know, the Russians liberated us and they were just like very rough. But my cousin told us that they were liberated by the American soldiers. The soldiers gave them chocolate, they gave them food right away. They were actually very gentle. So my two cousins, it's a miracle. She has the number, she was in Auschwitz. People died there. Very few people survived. So they survived Auschwitz, two cousins, and the Americans liberated Auschwitz. You know, and they even spoke about it. Maybe Eisenhower was one of them. So they got chocolate, they said, and they took pictures of the kids. And this cousin, oh, I wish I had that book here. This cousin has a picture with another girl, and it was in the infirmary because she had typhus, but she survived typhus. But like most people died of, Anna Frank died of typhus. It's the same camp. So she had maybe a mild case of typhus, and usually they shave you, you know, they shave your hair and everything. But she has hair because she said she screamed and yelled, and somehow they didn't shave her hair. She's about 12. She looks beautiful. I recognize her in the book. And then when I told my sister, she says she knows the American soldiers took pictures of them, and there were some British. And her picture was so beautiful, even though it was in the infirmary. The picture it's in the British Museum in London, and it's in Dachau. You heard of Dachau?
Yeah.
It was almost like, you know, like it was like Auschwitz. It's amazing. This picture I saw first because in Hebrew school, a kid brought the book. It's a book all about the Holocaust. And I look at one of the pages, I said, I can't believe it, it's my cousin. So when I told her, your picture is in this book. She says, I know, they took pictures of her and this other girl, not her sister, and it's in different places. So you know, when we went back to Europe, we went to Dachau. We didn't expect it. There is a museum in Dachau. First you go through the terrible place where the ovens were and all that. And then there is a big museum with all kinds of pictures. And my cousin, the same picture, is a huge, gorgeous, it's a big picture, these two girls, and I'm standing next to it, and my husband took a picture as we stand. So we found out that her picture, this picture is so famous, it's also in Dhaka, and it's maybe, in England, she said, but it maybe is in different places. And I have the book that shows. I should have prepared the book. It's here someplace. Maybe if I know where it is, I could grab it. So that cousin lives in London. She's a great-grandmother now, but you couldn't miss her face because she still looks like that, and she looked always beautiful. She's a great-grandmother, and she knows about this book, and she knows about the picture because she also has a copy. We bought the book in Dhaka. When you go to a museum, they sell books. So we had that book from, I tell you, I couldn't believe it. And she said it was amazing. A British soldier wanted to take it to England. You know how they sometimes, when she was like 40 maybe, and the British soldier, they wanted to save the kids and help, and they said, come to London. So she says, no, I'm staying with my family. But a lot of people, maybe did go to some places, and we said we want to go home because we're looking for my father and see who survived from the family. So we went,
So you came home, and then how long did you stay in?
What happened is, they just said go, and nobody really helped you. There were some other concentration camps, you heard about it, where people went to a displaced camp, looking for relatives or that. We were in Austria, so we just kind of walked for days. It was like, it was terrible too. A lot of things happened. I'm not going to get into one of the things because my sister always says, don't forget to say that. As we were walking, and it was very hard and the rain came, and we did have little bundles of things, and sometimes other people walked too, Germans, who knows, we didn't know. And so it was nighttime, now I have to laugh at it. So it was nighttime, and sometimes they let you be on a wagon or somebody else's, and people were walking with animals and all kinds. So the true story is that it was nighttime and they were looking for me. They couldn't find me. And I tell you, it's right. They couldn't find me, and they looking and looking, and it's amazing. But so after they looking, and I was under a cow. You know what? It sounds funny. So they found me. My sister. There were animals. It wasn't like our cow or anything.
Yeah.
I always say, how did the cow get there? People were walking on this main, terrible road. And I guess I fell asleep. I was very tired, probably fell asleep. It was dark. For a while, they didn't even notice somebody's missing. When they look at me, there was like, I was under the car. They said I could have been killed.
God.
And then when they did find me, later, I recall for a while my face was hurting, and they said for a while I was like delirious, I didn't talk, and then they always say, they said it's a miracle that the cow didn't kill me, a big animal. And they also, I have to tell you, so we started to walk, and we went into, some of the Austrians were running away. For whatever reason. Maybe they ran away from their home, or maybe some of them felt guilty because now the war is over and they're going to be punished. So we went into an Austrian house that was empty. And my mother, they had like a lot of hard-boiled eggs. So my mother took a few dozen hard-boiled eggs. It looked like it was cooked, but like the people left everything there. There was still like soup on the stove. Right. So my mother took the eggs into a bag And she figured she's going to feed us and we will have what to eat because we were, starved. So during the night, my brother, who was 3 years old, nobody noticed. He kept eating the eggs. So next day, when my mother wants to give eggs, they said, my little brother finished all the eggs. So everybody was crying again. First they cried because what could have happened to me. They all cried, what's going to happen to him? He ate all the eggs, he's going to get sick and die, who knows? So they always tell me sometimes, you finish all. And then the other thing is, it's hard to picture it. While we were walking days, the Germans left that trains there because they were running away, the Nazis. Mm. And they were like trains that they couldn't do anything with it. Some were full of food. Mm-hmm. So we went into one of these compartments and they had like milk powder. Mm-hmm. Because probably for the soldiers they had milk powder, and we started to eat because we were starving. And I remember they told us, stop because you're going to be sick, we're not used to eating. And some people got sick. We were like all stomach ache and cramps because we were so hungry, we were eating so much of that. And then later on, my people, the adults kept saying, don't eat, just eat a little because we were not used to eating. Mm-hmm. In one compartment they had shoes. So people were helping themselves to shoes. Maybe, the Germans took all the shoes and the Nazis left it there because now it's like, they left all kinds of things behind. So we were starving. And some people got very sick from eating, So finally, all I remember is that we got home. But I think by the time we got close to the Hungarian border, we were able to go on a train to the village, to the city Debrecen, where we actually, that is near where we used to live. Because we knew they took us from Debrecen. We knew that our father was in Debrecen for a while because that was the biggest city. So we arrived to Debrecen one day. When we arrived and they told my mother about my father, it's amazing. But when we arrived home, we really didn't get any big sickness in the concentration camp, a miracle. But when we arrived home, all the children, we all had like mumps, because one came down with it, maybe from vitamin deficiency. We had a few things when we came home. One kid had measles, then everybody got, even the bigger ones, because maybe now that you're free and the sickness came out finally, it's a miracle it didn't come out in the concentration camp. So, and then I remember we were all very broken down because my mother told us, that was a sad story because somebody who happened to be there told my mother that when they shot the people, they just didn't, it was terrible, like they didn't really bury them in separate graves. They just threw them all in one. So I remember it was, and they said, it happened just now, my father practically survived, So it's like they asked people to help identify, And then my poor mother, I don't know if she was sure, they said this, so then they buried them in separate graves, so then we got a number. And we, then later they made a beautiful monument, and then it's, the names are there, and then we went back a year that we were able to go back. My father's name is on top, and there were about 45 men are buried there, and it's called the Heroes section, and it's in Debrecen. Wait a minute, I'm getting mixed up. We even have a, yes. So first we had a number on it, but now, you know, we made later a nice, let's say a monument, and the city itself, the Jewish community, maybe even the non-Jewish community helped. So now some people take care of the cemetery, because this is the Jewish cemetery, but some cemeteries are in such terrible shape that you don't even find anyone there. But this one is pretty, pretty good, because like I said, some people who were hiding or who were dead or who came back, they started to take care of them. So then what happened is my mother, was very hard to take care of the children, so the American Jewish committee was helping. They went all over to see who survived. So they came to Hungary too, I guess, some representatives, and they gave us, certain amount of money every month, and even beautiful clothes came from America. We couldn't believe it, So shortly after that, we were in that children's home in Budapest, but it was a nice dormitory, and we had a school nearby, and very good food, everything. And I remember there was a big place with all kinds of beautiful clothes. It came from here, from America, but not brand new, but beautiful. They said the Jewish community collected it, and we could go and pick whatever fit us. So we had everything, and we lived in this home, and my mother stayed, and then my poor mother was alone, and later she remarried. She married this nice man who also had about 8 children.
Really?
So we were 8, they were 8. But my stepfather, he lost his wife in the concentration camp, but he also came back, but his kids were older, so we were never together 16.
So you weren't so...
No, because he already had an older son who lived in Israel from way before. And then some of his kids were older, and so I just want to tell you that shortly after the war, there were times nobody wanted to stay in Hungary because what they did to us, and they didn't help us. They helped the Germans, so we didn't feel like staying there. So for a while, we were able to leave. So my mother let 4 of the older kids leave. They came to America. That time was easy. If you wanted to leave, I guess through American committee, they helped you. So you could go. My one sister, and then, shortly not too long after that, one sister and 2 brothers. One sister, well, she was very, she was very young, but they also, after the war, people were getting married and all that. So she left and went to America, and 2 boys left with a yeshiva, like a rabbi took them. So they all ended up in America, and they were fine. And we, because we were younger, my mother didn't want to let the younger kids leave, and we were in this children's home. By the time she was going to let us leave, Hungary was communist. You couldn't leave anymore. So like in 46, 45, 46, maybe even a little after that, you could leave. But after that, because the Russians took over Hungary.
Right.
So Hungary, even though the Russians helped us, but later on, Hungary was under the Russians and nobody could leave. The country was communist, the Russians were occupying Hungary. But no one could leave the border. If you said you want to go to America, they would kill you right away. So my sister and my brother, they were crying because they were here and we were there. And we were dreaming when we could be united. And my mother and my stepfather. So my stepfather had older kids, but 3 younger kids were home. So we were, 3 younger kids from him, but we were very close, like brothers, sisters. And us, the younger ones, my 3 already were in America. So for holidays we would go home, but otherwise we were in the children home. Later my brothers were in a yeshiva.
Which yeshiva did they go in?
Hungary was the only communist country that was still better. It had a Beis Yaakov, I went to Beis Yaakov in Budapest. The yeshivas, for learning Torah, I don't know if you ever heard of it. That time, instead of having a time, we had a yeshiva, and the kids, the boys would go every day to another house to eat. You heard about that?
Yeah, I think.
Yes, because it's not like they had a big dorm, so they would learn and live with families. Live with religious families who were also religious, and they would eat there, but they would learn. So it's not like, so they were nearby in a small yeshiva, and they only came home for holidays. And the boys went away as early as after Bar Mitzvah.
Right.
So 2 brothers were, living in a yeshiva, but meantime, our town also had kids. We also had boys coming to our house to eat. But I think my mother sent away the boys because that was a better yeshiva for them in that other town. So what happened is, you couldn't leave. We were crying. We wanted to leave. But under the communism, and my sister sent us packages, but officially you couldn't get anything from America. Mm-hmm. So they had a system where you pay money and the communists take part of it. And because of that, they let you have some of it. But you had to pay tax after it. So this was going on for years. You couldn't leave. So like from 1948, 49, all those years, my mother was crying because we were getting older, and she says, what will happen? There are no religious boys, because mostly the parents let the bigger boys leave. So a lot of girls were remained, and the boys were already in America. Or some people went to Israel. We had cousins in Israel, and they were begging us. They said, come to Israel, but we already had my sister and brothers here. So we said, we have to come to America but a lot of people went to Israel. Israel or other countries, but mostly either the United States or many went to Israel. So we couldn't leave. We were going to try to disappear or something, but they said they would shoot. You couldn't. And my sister, they were dreaming what will happen if we can't come out. So what happened? In 1956, the Hungarians were pretty brave. They didn't want the Russians there, but the Russians were, very powerful. So something started in Czechoslovakia. They rebelled against the Russians, but the Czechoslovaks were, very fast. The Russians pushed it down. They killed some of the rioters, but then it started in Budapest. So I don't know if you ever read about it. It was the revolution. The Hungarians were very brave. It started with the university students, and then they rebelled against the Russians. And if it wasn't for that, we could never get out, so forth. But the Russians were running away first in Budapest, and then the Hungarians elected the communist leader of Hungary was running away, and they elected a very good leader called Imre Nagy, and they thought that we are free. And for a while, everything was upside down. The Russians were running, the Hungarians were shooting like they were in charge, and this is the only time we ran away. Because, people who wanted the war, like the battle was going on in Budapest. And meantime, nobody was minding the border. And it was like everybody knew, Jewish, non-Jewish, all kinds of people. They were dreaming of leaving. And that's everybody imagined, started to run away. And because the Russians came back, you know, America said, we're going to come and help the Hungarians. And so the Hungarians became braver and braver. But they said, America let them down, didn't come. Well, it wasn't so simple, you know. And Eisenhower was the president. So what happened is, because America, they felt so bad, Eisenhower gave permission for 100,000 Hungarian refugees to come here. First it was 20, then 40. So we came like that. You didn't need a passport, you didn't need anything. But you know, America wasn't the only one. Pretty soon all the countries wanted to take in Hungarians because it's against the Russians, and also they were sorry for us. But basically, so the Russians came back with tanks and big troops, and they killed out the Hungarian freedom fighters, and they captured this guy who was going to be in charge. Well, we were all very, you know, sorry. So the leaders who started the revolution, they were all, some were captured, some were killed, some were just hiding. The Russians were overpowered, but for a while, nobody was minding. The Hungarian freedom fighters didn't care. They said, leave, you know, because it's like all against, you know, the Russians. But they felt like the Russians are coming back and say that leave. And even maybe many of them ran away. And so every country tried to take in Hungarians. They were actually fighting for us. So we only wanted to come to America, but some people went to Switzerland, some people went to France, some people went to New Zealand. You know, they were saying like, this country takes in 10,000, but the United States took in the most. And out of those 100,000, you know, like some were Jewish, some were not, some were all kinds of religions. But when we arrived, when we ran away, we arrived to Austria again. We arrived to Vienna. And there, like for the Jewish refugees, Jewish organization was waiting. The Hias. You heard about the Hias? Hias. It's still helping. Now the Hias recently was helping Russian Jewish refugees. They always helping new people. It's called the Hias. It's the Hebrew Immigration Society. They were wonderful too. And the Catholics were waiting and helping there. And the other religions were helping. So like when you arrived to Vienna, they were all waiting for us. So I remember we were helped by people from America, the highest, and then they already helped us in Austria because it took a few weeks. And they put us in, most people came on a big boat to the United States. If you were lucky, you came by plane because they said the boats were horrible. So they put women and children, the United States soldiers, were all processing this thing. So one day, after a little wait, no passport, nothing, but meantime we got help, the money, they put us in a hotel. So we arrived to Camp Kilmer. It's a big army base in New Jersey. I couldn't believe it. The American soldiers, they made everything for us. You know, there were all kinds of Jewish, non-Jewish, everybody, but they gave us food. I remember one soldier was giving me cereal. I said, what is this? You know, we didn't have cereal yet. So he says, like this. And right away they gave us, you know, we had kosher food, the Jewish people and the other people had. And once you were in Camp Kilmer, your family could come and get you. So my sister found out, well, when we were in Austria, they already found out that we are free. Because after that, they closed the border again. And again, the Russians were in charge. And my mother stayed behind, and my staff, older people couldn't run. Because we ran all night, and we were afraid what they were going to do to my mother and my stepfather. But you know, they didn't care so much, older people, so they actually let them go later. So my mother, we were all reunited in New York. So my sister and my brothers who were here, nobody could believe it. They took pictures of us because they said this family is reuniting, and other people. I was in the newspaper, I was in the Jewish paper. So the only thing is, when I was in Hungary, I was still able to attend the Beis Yaakov and study. So I became a Hebrew teacher, and I was already teaching when I was 16.
Wow.
I was teaching since I was 16.
Wow.
And so when I arrived to the United States, right away they asked you, what do you want to do? What everybody's helping you. So I got a job in a beautiful school in New York, in Queens. I was teaching in this beautiful school called Rebel. But meantime, at night I was going to Stern College.
You went to Stern?
Yeah, but at night it's called the TI, Teachers Institute.
Oh, wow.
It's an evening. You went?
No, I have friends at Stern.
Yeah. So at night, because as soon as I arrived, a lot of people say, well, they did tell me, they said, this is America, everybody has to work. I said, okay, I'm willing. I was already working. So at night I went to it's called TI, Teachers Institute of Yeshiva University. But it's like a branch of the Stern College, but at night. So I went to school at night because they said, I was good enough, so they took me to college to this. And meantime, a few weeks later, I got a job because one of the professors, Dr. Raden, he was wonderful. He heard about me because everybody was helping. So he heard, about me. He heard that I want to teach. So he was a professor at TI. So he told me about this job in Queens. So I started to teach. But after, it was amazing. I went to this night school, and because we arrived in February to this country in 1957, because in 56 the revolution was in November. So we arrived here early 57, and I was teaching and went to Stern College to get more, to get a degree here too. So what happened is, then summer came, and they said, summer job, everybody needs a summer job in America. Okay, so they sent me to an agency, and they sent me to a hotel, to a kosher hotel, where I will take care of children. Parents people come to the hotel, and they have counselors, I was like a counselor for children. I got a job in this hotel, not far from New York City. It's Rockaway Beach. And then the first day, they said they also have some waiters. The waiters are yeshiva boys. The waiters are religious boys, because this is a kosher hotel, who come from the yeshiva to work as waiters or busboys. And I'll be the counselor, the only girl, because they don't have that many children, people. So one of the owner says, all the waiters were here last year. He said, there is one who is so special. And they all kept saying, and they said, the others, but this one is such a fine boy. He's so, and the cook was a nice lady. She says, if I had a daughter, I would pick a boy like this. So what happened is, I was introduced to the waiters the first day, good-looking waiters. And then there is this good-looking one, Alex Raden. And the owner says to me, he is the finest boy. They were 21, 22, I was 20. And so all summer I was in this hotel, and all the waiters tried to hover over me, but they were not all, one or two were religious yeshiva boys. One was he came from a big yeshiva named Chaim Berlin. And another one. And the other waiter was, nice Jewish guy, but more modern, not so religious anyway, because you know, like after the war, even during the concentration camp, we kept to continue our religion, yes. And to me it was so nice. All the brothers, everyone kept what my father and my mother taught us. So, but I didn't even think of, you know, getting married. I just came. I'm new here. And they were talking to me English, and they said, oh, I learned English in Hungary. And they said, oh, you speak English beautiful, but, you know, they were joking because I didn't pronounce everything perfect. And they said, let's hear it again, you know, like. And so in this hotel, families came, I took care of the kids. So what happened is the waiters were sitting eating. They didn't give us the same food what the guests get. So we were laughing. And some of these boys says, he says, listen, come to my room, I have some chicken. You know, because they said we were able to get some good food what the guests eat. They gave us okay food, you know, but not a big steak all the time after all. But they paid us, you know, I was getting paid too. Mm-hmm. And I had a nice room. So we were in this hotel, and everybody was praising him, and I liked him the most. He was the nicest, you know, the handsome, the fine, and the guests, you know, they were waiters. The guests were crazy about him. All the guests said, he's such a fine boy. The others, most of them are just like. So what happened is when summer, you know, we worked together, and sometimes Sunday you know, my sister would come to visit. But when summer was almost over, some people said to me, don't expect anything much, because this is America. They said, don't worry, these guys will go back and they forget about you. And because, you know, we were already, he was a photographer. And so he took beautiful pictures of me. He even had his own, you know, darkroom. So what happened is, but, you know, he found out my family is very religious. His family was from Poland. And his story is amazing too, about the Holocaust. But he survived some other way. His father was killed. Also, when the war was practically over, that's when they killed his father. But he had only one sister and the mother. And like, they were still young. My father was also like 42, and, you know, so the family was still young. So what happened is, I figured summer is over, he goes back to the yeshiva, and I live with my sister, you know, because I was still pretty new. So I figured I'll continue. I go to college at night, Stern College, and teach. And summer, I figured, well, we were like very, you know, good friends. I said, oh, they said, he might not call. Somebody says to me, don't forget, he might not call, and if the boy, you know, doesn't call. So we went back to New York, and I was like going crazy. And only a couple of days passed. The bell, I stayed with my sister, and my other sister was there too. The bell rang, and somebody brought a box of chocolate, like delivery. It came from him. And and my sisters, they started open. I said, you can eat it. I don't care for the chocolate as long. So he called on the phone. And everybody says, he has such a nice voice on the phone. They used to say, oh. So he calls on the phone. I want to meet you. You know, so this happened shortly after summer we went back. And he calls like, you know, can you see me Saturday night? We went out. So he didn't just call, he was very serious. So we continued, like, you know, but he was in school too. He was in yeshiva all day, and at night he went to Brooklyn College, you know. So he was learning. His mother wasn't here yet, they were still in Poland. He had an aunt who was, you know, very nice, but he lived in the dorm, and his aunt helped him to come over from London, because that's where they went first after the war. So that's a different story. So then we went out, and then again he calls, and I introduced him to the family, and my sister said, if she doesn't get married, we'll all go crazy, because she says, she's so much in love, and he is. So it didn't, I was working during the school year. So, like in December, we had an engagement party. Beautiful, and so he proposed, but we knew that in June we get married when school is out. And anyway, so anyway, what happened is my mother arrived and my stepfather. But his mother wasn't here yet, so we waited kind of, maybe summer, but they couldn't make it, so we had the wedding in June. His mother came a little bit later, was able to come. So, and my daughter always said, Mommy, tell me again how he proposed. Tell me again how Daddy. So this was amazing. Oh yes, I want to tell you, he gave me a picture right away. So I'm in this school at night, and the other girls who were born like in New York, all their lives they live here. They said, where did you find this nice guy? You just came. And you were ready, and we are here all our lives, and look, I still, they couldn't get over it. They said, you just came this year, and you found such a nice guy. And they said, what did you do? I said, I didn't do anything. It was like, and he came from different part of the world, and I came. He came from Poland, and he was in London, and he came to New York. He lived in New York for quite a while already. And I just came, and somebody said, well, you just came, you're playing refugee. Why? How come, it's crazy about you because there were so many girls, American and all that. So this is what happened. Meantime, maybe I jumped ahead, I'm sorry. So when the whole family, when we all came and the 8 children were here, again we were crying because my mother and my stepfather didn't get out first. And later the Hungarian government and the communists, they were communists again, they didn't care. Older people, they let them go. Because they figured, what do they need, the old people? So my mother and father were able to come, and then we were all united, couldn't believe it. And then, things were good for a while, but everybody says what my, mother went through in the concentration camp. The heart and all that, the people, especially maybe the kids, could take it better. But a lot of them just, couldn't live too long. And there aren't many people from, there aren't hardly any people who were adults, and they actually, our neighbor, is a very nice friend. He has a terrible story to what he went through, different. Sometimes we even said it, my gosh, when you listen to some other people, you find out some people have it, even more horrible. Because one man told us, my brother later, thank God everybody was happy again. So my brother, 2 brothers and a sister, they opened like a little factory making bells in New York. So, and they had different people coming, working. It was a good job for them. There was one man, a very nice man who also worked here. And he said he was like a teenager. And he said what the Germans did is for amusement. In his camp, and the Nazis, for amusement, they took these young people, he was a teenage boy, they took them and they said, climb on the tree, some terrible, and you better climb fast because you're going to start shooting. And if you're not on top, then you will be shot. And so he said he worked so hard to get to the top, and he was able, and some of the other people were killed. And he said, one time he just couldn't believe it. It looks like he's going to be killed too, but he says he was high enough, so for an amusement, they did it over and over, and they had the ducks too. So my brother says when he heard some of those things, so, and my cousin was the one who came back. She saw my grandmother going into the shower, but it wasn't shower, it was really gas. My grandmother was the one who lived in Czechoslovakia. She was taken from Czechoslovakia, and these 2 And my aunt in Budapest thought that the kids would be safer there. So they sent 2 girls there, but they were taken to Auschwitz. And those are the 2 girls who survived. She saw my grandmother going in. Student and I went to, you know, most of the time it was like gas. But in our place, brothers got married, and all the sisters got married, and this brother is like a rabbi, and he has 8 sons out of the 14. 8 sons and 6 girls. And all the boys are very religious. They all get married very young. And the girls, too. Now there is a girl engaged. She's 18.
Wow.
Wow.
That wedding is not going to be till spring. But there is, my other brother has a 18-year-old engaged. The boy is 18 and the girl is 19. Now what happens is sometimes the girls are a little bit older because it doesn't matter, you know. So he is so young. Now this brother who had the 14 children, all his kids got married very young, and they all have kind of what I say, beautiful children. And when there is a wedding or something, all the kids are there. So cute. They asked me if I know all the names of the 100. My sister knows it. She lives there. You know, my sisters all, they live there. I live here, so, you know, I'm not so close. So sometimes I say, oh, which one is this one is that. So cute when we went at the last wedding. This girl comes over, so pretty, about 8 years old. She says, I am Devorah's daughter. She tells me whose daughter she is, because you know, one is Devorah, one is her maid. The first one is called, even you know, after the father, if somebody died, you name the child. So we have so many Moshe. Moshe, my father was Moshe. Moshe was in Yiddish, Moshe. So we had a Moshe. My brother is a Moshe. And later, when my mother died, Razi. Everybody has a Razi. But nobody gets confused. We have Razi this, Razi that, you know. But we just say like Shala's Razi, Yitzhak's Razi, because everybody has one. So this brother who has 14 children, all married, and he passed 100, the grandchildren. It's not like he's bragging about it, because you know, he's so religious.
Yeah.
But I said to my sister, I said, years, not too long ago, it was 85. I said, when did it become, you know, another baby? They call me always when someone is a baby. So now it's past 100. And my sister says, my brother is not superstitious. He doesn't mind if you say it, but I don't know. He should have a picture of all the 100 together.
I think you should.
I didn't see it. Maybe they
My
have.
gosh.
Maybe they don't believe in, you know, because there is this saying, the evil eye, you know, like some people might give a, how do you say it?
Superstition, kind of?
You know,
An eye of horror.
Yes.
You want one.
It actually means the evil eye, which means that, you know, some people might say, oh, you know, and maybe they look at it like not in such a good way. So you don't brag about it, you know. But he doesn't deny that he has over 100. Another brother has 11. He's doing pretty good too now. They all married, and so, hello, handsome guy. Come here. I'm sorry I couldn't help it. I told them. But also my daughter, you know, she has such a good sense of humor. There was another handsome guy. And sometimes she's joking, she says, Mommy, why did you pick Daddy? Tell me again. So, listen, this was the handsome guy that everybody, even the cook says, if I had a daughter, you know the joke, like if I had a daughter, but it was true. Yes. So now, listen, I'm telling you about I'm sorry, I told them about, they found me under the cow.
Okay.
How many times you heard it?
I heard it.
But look,
Let's see.
but wait a minute. It's like, it could have been, you
Yeah.
know.
It was hard.
Yeah.
My sister, who was already older, she said, everybody was screaming if they don't find me, or if the cow, you know, if I'm there long enough and they don't find me. And so these, also, yeah, when we came home, this little brother was pretty sick. You know, it's a miracle it didn't happen, because you wouldn't have gotten the medicine. So he had like pneumonia, you know, but a little child, so had high fever. All these things came out like different things, but we couldn't believe how my poor mother was so skinny, and she's not as, basically not a skinny person, because she didn't eat. We were all so skinny. Kids used to ask me, did you brush your teeth? Did you have a dentist? I said, what are you talking about? What vitamins? We didn't have vitamins. We didn't even know if you get a little piece of bread or, yes. And somehow, it's like,
When your sister came to America, did she have a relative to go to?
you know what? No, actually, I tell you. Later on, you know, people already came. She came because it was like friends we had. Yeah, we have close friends. And the boys, the two boys came because the whole yeshiva came to America. They didn't come alone. They were still, you know, pretty young, like teenagers. So the whole yeshiva came together. It's called the Popular Yeshiva. It's still a big yeshiva, but my brothers still have support at yeshiva. So the boys came to the yeshiva. My sister came because everybody was trying to save and help the people. The only thing is, when we came already, we knew we want to come here. You'd be surprised when we came, and in Austria they were trying to ship you to different countries. They didn't want you to go to the United States, because most people wanted to come to the United States. So I'm standing in line. I already spoke, you know, pretty good English, and the people who were from America were trying to, and they said, maybe you go to Sweden or something. I got scared because I was like smiling, and I said, then I realized maybe they'll ship me to, I said, no, my sister, my brothers are in America, in New York. Once they found out that, they said, okay, if you, later it became like only if you had relatives
Right,
here.
that's what I was
And then, unbelievable, when we arrived to America, it was like, in Camp Kilmer, they said something like, they said, who wants to go to California? So I was like saying, oh, California, it's so beautiful. I heard the weather is always. So this lady says, you go to California? She almost, I said, no, I didn't, you know, I told my kids, I was just saying that California, for the weather is always nice. And she says, okay, you go to, because even in America, most people wanted to go to the New York area.
Right.
Because it's, you know, religious and family, relatives. By then, everybody had relatives. And my sister said to me, and I was in Austria, don't go anywhere else. And if they want to, you just insist. And if they want to take you someplace else, you insist. Your family is in New York. You know, because once they ship you there as a refugee or something, you can't just right away change. And also, all these communities want to help you. So that, you know, Los Angeles says probably we want to take in 10,000, and we're willing to help. New York says, like later on when the Russian Jews came from Russia, and everybody wanted to help them, but you still have to go to Baltimore says we're going to take in like this many, and then they were responsible helping. So when we arrived to New York, even though I already had relatives, the Jewish organization hires, they helped us for a while. For a long time, my brothers who came with me and me, they got money every month. We got different stipends for housing, and later on, if somebody worked, and he made enough money, then they stopped. But I tell you, the people in America, all the different people, they have their refugees. It was, well, you know, there are a lot of people who ended up in, for instance, Argentina. We heard stories about Argentina. We would never go there. You know what Argentina they did?
Yeah.
They took in the Nazis. The people who were running away, the Nazis, who were able to run away when the war ended, these big leaders, these horrible Nazis, they knew they were going to be punished if they caught. Many of them ran to Argentina. And in Argentina, they held them. And Eichmann, the one who was in charge of killing all the Hungarian Jews, and taking them to Auschwitz, including my family, and Eichmann went to Argentina. And he lived there happily for a long time. Of course, he had some plastic surgery and all that, but he still looked like, sweetheart, if Eichmann tried to change his face, he didn't do much, right? Because he still looked...
Well, I guess he looked the same, but he was older.
Yes,
but they
and
knew what he looked like.
yes,
You know,
and
they-
in Argentina, he knew that all the people protecting, they were helping the Nazis.
Yeah.
But in Israel and in America, there was a big, wonderful organization, what is called the Simon Wiesenthal organization, to
The Simon
To
Wiesenthal
catch-
Wiesenthal Center in Los
yeah,
Angeles.
to catch all these big, you know, murderers who were in charge. Not even everybody they can't catch, but the leaders who did this horrible thing, and they had the names they knew, and they knew that Eichmann is hiding someplace in Argentina. Finally, the Israeli, it's written up, it's amazing.
Yeah.
There's a movie too.
Yeah.
You saw it? I mean,
Well, I heard a story from one of the Nazi hunters. Like
Yeah.
he was from Israel,
Yes.
and he like came to speak at in my class, and he said that
Yeah,
like
but you
he was
watched the
they were
whole-
following him
Yes.
for like a while, and they knew it was
Yes.
him, and they pinpointed it. And
you know,
they
I was in
went
America already when Eichmann was caught. Right? When was he caught?
I think it was in the 70s. the early
Yeah, so we
70s.
Yeah.
already had children and we watched the whole thing. So what happened is, the Israeli agents, they know where he is, and he lives happily, he has a job. He wasn't even afraid. He had a nice home, his family, and he went to work, and they knew exactly, they made sure that it's him. I mean, he still looked like he couldn't change it. And one day, and he was coming home from work, finally many years later, you know, they didn't just say, they made sure that they could do it. They went over and they said, you Eichmann, and at first he says, I'm not. And they said, we know who you are, and then he admitted it, and there was a big trial. As big murderer as he was, they still gave him a decent trial,
Yeah.
remember? But he was in a bulletproof gas,
Yeah.
I mean glass
A glass box.
thing, so nobody should kill him, because some people recognize him. They said, he's the one who killed my children, he's the one who he himself killed people. And they couldn't take it, they would have grabbed him and like, they didn't want that. So he had, finally, I think he's the only one in Israel who got,
There are a
Israel
few
never
more.
gave, hardly ever gave capital punishment. Finally, Eichmann, after all the trials, witnesses came, he kept saying, he admitted he broke down. First he said they made me do it. And then he did, he said he did it, and all the things, and the witnesses came forward, and he did such things in Hungary. If it wasn't for him, all those hundreds of thousands of people would be alive, because they gave him the job of taking care of the Hungarian Jews. I tell you, there are books, even though we went through it, I'm reading. So then the trial went on, and he was capital punishment, crime against humanity. And then I could see him, you know, at the trial. Some people came witnesses. They fainted because they saw him, they couldn't even talk, they recognized. But the worst thing that happened is Mengele,
Yeah.
the doctor.
Yeah.
They're not sure ever if there was And they almost caught him. They don't know. He died. He this. I don't know. So nobody. And then, like I told you, what happened in Wallenberg. So Israel has a special section of the righteous people who were not even Jews, but they were saving Jews. You went to Yad Vashem?
Yeah.
You went to?
Yeah.
So Wallenberg has a special place.
I don't interrupt, but the popcorn is getting cold, and
Who called?
I said the popcorn is getting cold.
Yes. So you know what? I'm sorry. Was there anything we? So you know what? Now people ask me. You know, like in my school to the end was they said, how could you go on? All these horrible things happen, and what's the secret that people go on? And well, because you have to be happy and you have to continue your life. And even it says in the Torah, you know, if something terrible happens, don't just cry forever, you know, go on and be happy. So this is, I guess this is what it is. So, and so if you watch that movie again, that was like, you know, when they almost took us, if it wasn't for them. We figured God wanted us to be saved. So the train radio station was gone. They couldn't take us. And we were saying Shema Yisrael, we were praying. When we came back, we continued, you know. So I'm very happy. The children, we have 3. Rachel, she has 6 children. And Mark, Moshe, they have 4. They live in Staten Island. And the youngest one there, too bad, he moved from Baltimore. He lives in Boca now. They have 3 and she's expecting. Dina.
How was the date yesterday? Or on Tuesday, your granddaughter went out on a date?
Oh, you know, thank you for that. I said, my daughter doesn't sound so cheerful. Finally, I said, how was Ariel's day? She said, she's a wonderful, very nice boy, but she says it's not for her.
Oh, that's fine.
So far, he's a great, you know, nice, everything. I said, you mean it wasn't what they said? They said he's handsome,